Present.
Mr. Gibson?
Here.
Mr. Grimm?
Here.
We stand for the pledge. Mr. Kelly.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we do have somebody signed up for community comments. Before I call you to the, I guess, microphone here, we don't have a podium tonight.
Actually, we'll have her stand right where she signed up, if that's okay. Or sit, whichever you're comfortable.
Okay.
Let me read my statement here. Community comments are one way for citizens to communicate with the Board of Education. When your name is called, please come to the podium, state your name, address, and topic. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please remember this is a formal and official meeting of the Board of Education. What you say becomes part of the official meeting record. If your comment involves a problem with a student, employee, or board member, please do not identify them by name. Keep in mind, we are meeting in a schoolhouse and in the presence of students. At this time, it is a primary role of the Board of Education to listen and reflect on what is said. Sometimes we may respond or ask questions, but not always. Whether or not we respond, your input is valued. And I believe it's Jeanette Marshall.
Good evening. My name is Jeanette Marshall. I live at 9369 Loop Drive, and I am a big supporter of the students here, but I have a really big issue with this busing issue. I live on Loop Drive, and it's a very busy cut-through street. And when we got the busing schedules this fall, a lot of the intersections are becoming the bus stops. Children are standing at intersections, not at driveways, for the busing to pick them up at a safe place. My child was standing at a guardrail for the first few weeks and trying to get a lot of information, trying to figure out a way for these children to be safer. Is right now, there's still a lot at 7 a.m. It's dark outside. You know, when the snow starts, snow piles, everything. These children are standing literally at stop signs, like Mount Vernon and Russell, Mount Vernon and Muriel, Loop Drive, and Walker and Briar. They are literally standing at the corners of the intersections, not in a driveway, which is very upsetting to me because somebody's going to get hit because the drivers on these roads don't slow down, and I'm livid that this busing is not good. Let's see. I know that there's a parent in the school system that she's got 4 students or 4 children, and she's got 4 different buses for all 4 children. And I believe 2 of them are in one school. I have another parent that says her child is in elementary school and there's Maplewood children on it, which I thought each school had their own busing, but elementary students with Maplewood, not sure on that. Not sure why you guys decided to change to go to a internet type busing schedule when everything was working fine last year and the previous years, and all these children getting picked up at their driveways. The other thing is that my son's route, he gets home, my son is in middle school, he gets home at 3:20. It's 40 minutes after school. And I've noticed that elementary school kids are getting home at the same time. The routes of these schools, my son's route goes from here at the middle school, down Page, all the way to Frost, down by 480 to drop kids off first. Then they travel back to Evergreen and into our development, which the busing should be in zones, like each bus should have their own like development type thing. The other issue I have is that a lot of these, there's maybe 4 developments out of this whole community that have sidewalks. A lot of these developments do not have sidewalks. So these children are walking on the streets when busy drivers are speeding, and I hope nobody gets hit. And then the other thing we had an issue with is, I know my son plays football, and the other busing issue is that we don't leave for like an hour after school. We were down at Norton last night. Bus left at 3:45, didn't get down till Norton till 5:45, when the game should have started at, 4:30 or so on and so forth. But the bus routes down that way. I don't know if there's an easier way for the bus drivers to know, oh, there's construction down here in this section, like on 76, there was a bunch of construction. It took them a long time to get to Norton, and then it took them, they're not getting home till almost 10 o'clock at night, these kids, because of the busing. Let's see. Questions?
Do you have that written down in?
I have my notes, yeah.
If you'd like to email it to the Board of Education, you could do that.
Okay. And a lot of things, I have, tried to get a hold of Randy sometimes, but, I don't get responses right away, or it's just, I don't see a lot of, when I saw your board meeting on YouTube last month, I was just upset because I'm not sure if things are getting better, or it's just, it's not efficient. And I really wish the busing would become more efficient. My son shouldn't be getting home at 3:20 when elementary school kids are getting home at 3:20. My next door neighbor gets off of a bus at 3:20. 30 feet is another house, and he's on a different bus. So there's two different buses for an elementary student, and they live 30 feet apart. So I'm not sure, there's a lot of zigzagging going on with busing, so I'm not sure how it can get resolved. And that's my big concern, is that I think somebody's going to get hit at some point.
If you could email that to the Board of Education and, Mr.
You
Galval,
want to just send it to me, I'll get it out to the board.
Okay.
we'll take a look at your questions that you have,
Okay.
and hopefully we can just, address them.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just hoping that, me coming here tonight just says that, it still needs to get worked on, and it's got to get better.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall.
Thank you.
Nobody else signed up? Okay. Alex, you want to make your announcement?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the live broadcast of the Streetsboro Board of Education meeting. I am Alex Antonsik. Tonight's meeting is being held in the Streetsboro Annex School. And back to you, School Board President Brian Violi.
Thank you, Alex. Moving on to approval of minutes, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the minutes from 9/13/2018 as submitted.
I'll move. Second.
First and second, any comments? Please call the roll.
Ms. Ballard,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes.
Motion carried. Moving on to reports, Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Violi. We're going to begin. Last month, Ariane gave a nice overview of the district report card to try and help folks understand. I believe that her message was, as you remember, we own our report card, we own our grades, but we were hoping that people would listen to her presentation last month to know that you sometimes need to look beyond the grades that are on that report card to see the progress that we're making. We asked her last month if she would come, today to kind of go over some of the initiatives that we currently have in place here in the district. So, Ariane.
So what else? What else are we doing with the report card and what's going on? So what are we doing to improve the learning in the district? It's kind of what I focused on, all the other stuff that doesn't show up on the report card. One thing I found interesting is Mike and I were in Columbus last week at the state superintendent's conference, and they named like 4 more things that are getting added to the report card that have nothing to do with like the overall school. So it's just interesting that that's almost becoming a dumping ground for districts. So my goal tonight is to show you what else is going on to help improve achievement here in the district. And I broke it down by area. So at SES, the big push we've got going on is letters. I know I've talked about this multiple times, but it's truly making a difference. at our pre-K 3 building, not just K3, but pre-K. Our preschool teachers are a part of it as well. There's an early learning component they're a part of. For those of you that aren't aware, or if I haven't talked about it, it's the idea that it's very structured. They have to do online modules. They have to do face-to-face trainings. They have to do practice in their classrooms. And if they don't pass those things, they don't go on to the next section. So it's not just like, this will be easy, I'll go through the motions. There's no going through the motions for any of this because they can't move on. Our teachers work with a national trainer 3 times a year. We just had the first one in September, and then we'll be back with that person in January as well. So we were with them 3 times last year, 3 times this year. The thing that's interesting is we got our results back already for our first screening of our pre-K to 3 for this year, and our kids are where they're supposed to be for the first time in years. Like, they're where they're supposed to be, and having 80% of our kids on target is phenomenal. We've never been at that point, and that's where we are right now, and that's exciting to see. And it's really going to be fun to watch our current 1st and 2nd grade class, because they're the ones who've really had the foundation laid. We still have kids in the upper grades that we're still working with and putting every resource we can towards them to help them be successful. But it's interesting to see how you don't see the extremes like we've had in past years. 1st grade class should be here, and that's where they are, and we have a few outliers. It's not like before where we had 25 kids in 25 different places. So it's really exciting to see that happening at SES. At DEFR, some of the new things that are going on, DEFR's getting a science lab, which is pretty exciting with the 6th grade moving out to the middle school. They've been able to take one of the old classrooms, and Matt working with CJ to get some resources over to DEFR. That's in the final stages right now, trying to finish up that science lab. So teachers, instead of trying to each do their own lab in their own classroom and set it up and tear it down, and set it up and tear it down, to be able to say, we're going to this room. That way the entire 4th grade can participate in that lab, hands-on, working through the science standards. Is going to be a definite plus at DEFR. The other thing is our reading coach, that's DEFR sharing it with the middle school, but our reading coach that's been added this year replaced someone else. She's been phenomenal. She's a national trainer on a couple different reading strategies. She's been part of some of the letter stuff, so she's been able to incorporate what we're doing there up into an older grade level, which is great. And then the idea of the creation of common assessments. This is something that many districts have had done for many years, and now Mr. Brian over there, he's really getting a push to have those, to make sure that we're not saying, well, this class is doing this, but this class is doing this. This is what we do as a 4th grade, and everyone's being assessed because this is what we need to know how to do at the end of 4th grade. At the middle school, they've double blocked reading and math, and so instead of doing a 45-minute class, they've got a 90-minute class of reading, a 90-minute class of math, just to make sure that our kids' foundation is solid and strong. We also have the STEM club that just continues to grow at the middle school under Mr. Moulton's leadership. He was able to be a part of a group. He's a part of it again this year, of STEM teachers from all across the state of Ohio, looking at ways to how do you incorporate STEM more into the curriculum. We've got our high school offerings at the middle school, which we feel very, very fortunate about, kids being able to take advanced classes, getting high school credit while they're still in middle school. We've got the Mohican trip, which I know Mike and I just visited last week with those 6th graders, and it's always a fun time down there, even for the poor kid who flipped his canoe and got very, very wet. Yeah. And then our 8th graders getting to go to DC each year. Again, just great opportunities for our kids that are, that real world application. Mohican, the teamwork that goes into it, and I also joke with the parents when I take pictures, because the kids are responsible for the setting of the table, the cleaning up of the table, putting the dishes away. And so I had a couple parents ask me ahead of me before I went and say, hey, if you've seen so-and-so doing this, take a picture of my kid. I want proof that they can do it. I'm like, don't worry, I'll get it for you. So, but then the DC trip, for our 8th grade to really see how this country is run, the parts of history that made a difference. So some of those great things that we have going on for our middle school students in grades 6 through 8. At the high school, we've got some new course offerings that are going on. This year, we've double blocked an Algebra 1 class as well as a geometry class for some of our students who we know they're very capable, they just need additional time in terms of they need more support from the classroom teacher. And so we have double blocked 2 classes, one algebra 1, like I said, and 1 geometry. So they're with that teacher for 2 periods of the day instead of 1 to get some additional support. We also have some other courses. For example, we've expanded some of the songwriting classes for the electives for the kids. We also have an African American literature class that we're offering, and had some great people come in to speak with the students about that. We've offered some additional AP classes. This year we're offering AP American History for the first time. We have a full caseload of kids in that class taking it. Again, to give that possibility that those kids can take the test in the spring 3 or higher and get credit for college. So another great offering. SAT and PSAT testing, we're testing all our juniors in the spring. And so that helps. I mean, that is, I will admit, that's a state mandate. But also for some of our families who may not be able to afford to pay for an SAT, we now have an SAT score for every single one of our juniors. So they are college bound, they'll have that score ready for them. We also do PSAT testing. That just happened yesterday at the high school. We had over 200 kids take the PSAT that were sophomores and juniors. And so that's sometimes, that is how they determine like national merit scholars and things like that. So we had over 200 kids between the sophomores and juniors taking that, as well as about a dozen kids taking the SAT on site as well, which again, especially for some of our kids who are involved in a lot, in sports, music, athletics, I mean, anything that they could possibly be involved in. Some of you know because your kids are there. They don't always have a Saturday morning free that they can go to the PSAT. Because we were able to offer the PSAT at our site, we could also offer the SAT on site. And so it gave the kids the opportunity during the week to be able to take that test. So if they're in band and they had a competition, if they were on a sports team and there's a game this weekend, they wouldn't have to miss it. So it's, again, just another opportunity for our kids. We've got our Actively Caring for People group that just keeps growing. One of the things that Ira Campbell, who leads that group, he's really expanded it out now district-wide with the help. He's been doing a great job with that with the kids, and I know they went out, it's hard to see, but they went out a couple weeks ago to all the buildings, and the little ones, it was so cute because like they just idolize these high school kids, and they were high-fiving the kids, and you know, this is so cool, and I got to shake so-and-so's hand, and so like it's really neat to see that the older kids really connecting with the younger ones across all the buildings. We also have our school store through one of our special ed classrooms, so again, giving that real world experience to our kids that they need in terms of making change, adding up for totals, things like that. So again, some things at the high school that we're doing to really, again, help not just our college-bound kids, but all of our kids.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
How many AP courses do we offer right now at high school?
We now have six.
That's twice as many as we had when my son graduated. So.
One of the things that we've done, and I've been working with both Mr. Hogan and Mr. Newman, is making sure we add them appropriately. What we don't want to do is add 12 AP classes and then we have 2 kids sitting in a class. And so it's definitely very specific and targeted, and also talking with our students as to what do you guys want to see, because we don't want to offer AP chemistry if nobody wants to go into that science field, for example. So really targeting what do our kids want and want to see, and then filling it. And that was one of the things they asked for the last probably about 2 years, is they wanted an AP American History class. So that's why that one was the first one to be added.
And then the other question I have is the SAT and PSAT, will we be able to get like cumulative scores for our district with those tests? No.
Yes. Yeah, so we get a report of every student as well as an overall district average, and then also how that compares statewide and nationally.
When do those numbers come up?
We'll probably get those, well, PSAT we'll usually get back the beginning of December. SAT we get back in the spring after they take it in the spring. So they take it, I think, in April. We usually get them back the end of May.
Did we get them last year?
We did, yeah. And every year we've taken the SAT, our score has gone up. So it's increasing each year.
How many years have we done that?
SAT, we've done 2 years. This will be our 3rd year.
Could we get the last couple of years?
Yep, I can do that for you.
Cool. And then whenever these come out too.
Yeah, and I mean, we have prior years, but that's when kids went on their own to do them. I can give you those, but just realize, and I'll put a note in them, like this is one that had small sampling
I would
versus
like to
large
see is,
sampling.
since we've started doing it, because you're going to have more kids involved.
And with that also, just so you know, this also, that ties back to the Prepared for Success. because Prepare for Success that's on the report card is actually 2 years old, which was prior to when we started having to give it to every student. And so you're going to see that score go up across the state because this year's, well, next August when we get that, the 2-year-old data will be when we started. So with athletics, so I think it's important that we don't look at just the academic piece, but how are we doing the well-rounded kid? We've added freshman volleyball, added a JV girls soccer team. The increase in students participating in sports, in music, in clubs. We've had additional clubs added with various teachers because kids are saying, hey, can we do this? And looking at doing that. The partnership with our youth programs. I know some of these are hard to see, but when we had Junior Rockets at the game. Also this summer we have Running Rockets, Rockets on the Run. Running Rockets. I remember. But I know they had the kids, and it was neat. They had them running in the Aurora 4th of July parade, and it's pretty cool. They run right by my house, so I stood at the end, and they're all, this is Curtis, and so I snapping shots, and to see our little ones from like SES and Denver out there, just to get excited, and they had on their Streetsboro gear, and they were really proud to be running that, and I think it's great. What some of our coaches are doing was, just to get the kids involved at an early stage, whether it's in football, cheerleading, baseball, basketball. Like it's great to see the little ones get involved, and that also that our teams from the high school are giving back and really helping with the kids with mentoring and showing up at practices and things like that. Because again, I think it just builds that sense of community with the kids so they can see each other. And then the community 5K. This is something that started just last year. It got bigger this year. The last home cross-country meet of the year. They invite anybody in the community who wants to run it. So we had staff running in it this year. We had parents running in it. We had siblings running in it. So it's a fundraiser that happens over at City Park. And again, just another way to get more community involved with the kids. So we had James A. Garfield come over and run with our cross-country kids. It was high school, junior high, and it was more of a fun run. But again, that idea of bringing that community together. So district-wide, I think we talked about it a little already, but for those who are watching for the first time, the letters grant was extended to grades 4 through 12. So we have a group of teachers and administrators from each of Denver Middle School, High School, who will be working with me over the next 3 years to say, okay, this is great that we're catching them when they're little, but what happens when they're a sophomore in high school and are still struggling reading? What are those things that we can do to intervene to help that student? And so we'll be looking at it for more of a secondary look. As you know, the addition of the elementary counselors and social workers, they have been phenomenal. And just the amount of support they've been able to provide in all our buildings has been wonderful. Our technology coaches, we've reconfigured some things this year, and we have 2 teachers who are teaching half the day, and then they're coaching the other half of the day for technology. That's Dan Stitzel and Molly Cloder, and they are amazing. And the amount of classrooms that they've been in and worked with and been able to support is just amazing. And what they've been able to accomplish in about 8 weeks is pretty phenomenal. And teachers now saying, well, I can do this. Well, they came in and showed me how this, and now I want to try this. So really being able to use the technology with the students purposefully and not just as a glorified note taker. Because that's what we don't want to just put a Chromebook in front of a kid and be like, take notes on it. That's not what we want. We want it to be a tool that they can really use to see why are we using this and how is it making my learning more meaningful. The partnership we have with Kent State, we are very lucky to be so close to Kent. We've got our 6 teachers from Saudi Arabia with us this fall. That's going really well. They've started going out into the other buildings because they're primarily at the middle school and high school. This week they started going out into SES and Denver, and that's been interesting because they're mostly coming from Saudi Arabia as high school teachers. And so we put them in a preschool classroom last week, and that was a good time. So they were with kindergarten and first grade this week. So we're going to continue that with them. But again, it's a great way for our kids. I know I was talking with Becky Collier, first grade teacher, just today. They were in her classroom, and she said it was so neat because the kids got to ask them questions. They looked on a map. Where is Saudi Arabia? How long was a plane ride? And so really some of those conversations to really learn more about where they're from and things like that, as well as our partnership with Kent for the KEEP Academy, which is our PD for our teachers. Because again, we want to make sure our teachers are putting on their A game every time they're stepping in front of their classes. And so every June we host 3 days. We hosted it this year. We're going to host it again this year in June of 3 days of professional development for our staff. What's the latest and greatest that's really going to push it home? This room, PD space for staff. We actually have a space for staff, which is great now. We're not trying to steal someone's classroom when we do professional development for teachers. So it's nice to have this room that we can come to, work with staff. They have a place, they're not getting interrupted by phone calls or, oh, so-and-so just stopped in, can you just come talk to them for 5 minutes? And that's what would happen when we were in the building. So they're able to get away, we can focus on the task and get it done. And then the district leadership team, DLT, we continue to use that and improve that each year. But that's the idea of really looking at assessments and data. What's it telling us? What do we need to do about it? We can look at it, that's great. But moving that next step of what do we do about it? And our teachers are really started to hone that of, well, what's it mean? Well, what do we do now? Okay, well, this student doesn't understand it, but this one does. Well, what do I do with this one? What do I do with this one? So really trying to look at what does that data tell us of what we need to do next. So I just think it's pretty cool, all of the different things that our kids do. Whether it's down here when we took a group of our STEM kids down to Columbus for OSBA a few years ago. Up there we've got one of the Decker classrooms, this is Valenti's class, they were doing a read aloud of a book called Fish in a Tree. And she told me about it, and I told them, I'm getting the book, I'm reading it with you. And so on Monday, I was able to go into their classroom and we did a book talk about it. And what did you think of this character? And how did it make you feel? And just to hear their personal experiences with that book. And, just again, from our preschool classes up here, of learning by doing and learning by playing at the littlest grades, clear up to our seniors down there in the courtyard at the high school. Our kids are doing a lot and they're doing amazing things. And I think it's just a matter of we need to make sure we're always promoting that. Yes, the paper loves to put us on the front page of the paper as well as every other district of what the report card says, but there's more to Streetsboro than that. And then again, I think the partnerships that we've built with some of our kids, we've got, that was state track send off up there in the top left corner. The police department, they come in, what is it? Every month? Monthly now with SES for our students of the month. And, they usually either bring one of the canines or they bring the drone, and it's like the greatest thing ever for our little ones. So they get to see that, and they sometimes challenge the police officers to like a push-up contest. And so it's just another way for them to get involved with us. Whether it's the band supporting Vinny earlier this year when he lost his dad. I just feel like it's about the kids, and like that's what we are, and we truly do have the best students here. Like I've been to other districts, I've been in other districts, and we have amazing kids here, and so we just have to continue to show them off. And yes, we can jump through the hoops and play by the rules, but I think we have to remember that when we're looking at a report card, it's more than that, and our kids are more than that. I don't want our kids ever to be a number or a letter. I want them to be an individual. So, any questions? Yes.
I've got to answer this. When will the parents be notified of the PSAT and SAT scores?
We should get the PSAT scores back in December.
Okay.
SAT they take in April, so we probably won't get those back until the end of May.
Okay.
And then those reports follow pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, thanks.
So we get parent reports. Then
Any other questions?
Would you guys like this to go up on the website next to the other presentation as well?
Is there any time to do anything else, Arian?
What?
Is there any time to do anything else? That's a lot. Great job.
Nice job, Aaron. Thanks.
Thanks, Arian. All right, so moving on in my superintendent's report, I just want to I have a brief conversation with all of you about a community safety forum. It was sparsely attended, but we had, I think it was between 15 and 20 non-school personnel there. We did Andreas did record that, and it's been up on the district website, as well as the mayor posted a link, the PTA posted a link, PASS posted a link. And we've had quite a bit of viewing. We also, I also sent a link out to the staff along with some information about it. But from my opinion, I know a lot of you were there, and I would welcome input or comments. But from my perspective, we had a great panel. The panel included Ira Campbell, our high school counselor, one of our high school counselors, Officer Fogelman, our SRO and DARE officer, myself. We had Chief Powers, we had Chief Manuals, and then we had our insurance agent who also represents, from Highland, represents over 300 school districts around the state of Ohio. And it was a great night. We had a lot of good questions submitted. I added some from last year's form because they were good questions. And the night basically went where we highlighted all the things that we're doing in Streetsboro, not just the physical plant, the buildings, but also the mental health and the programs that we have going on to keep kids safe. We also announced and rolled out the introduction of a proactive response team. We talked about that, and we notified staff about that as well, proactive response team. And again, just to very quickly go over that, it's a group of non-teaching staff that has been highly trained in crisis response, combat first aid. We hired a private security consultant that's handling all this training. This group of non-teaching personnel also has passed extensive firearms training. They passed the FBI qualification course. They passed the Marine Corps qualification course. They passed modified APATA course, which is APATA course is what your police officers in the state of Ohio have to pass. It was a modified test that was designed that about 70% of your Ohio officers would likely struggle on. So that team passed that. And then also this proactive response team has monthly ongoing training, including combat first aid, implementation of that in the field, also fire on fire training where they're put into situations where they have to respond to an active shooter, where it's live fire, obviously with airsoft or what are called simulation rounds. So it adds that stressor then and adds to the training. When I was finished presenting that to our community, and I know you were there, but I'm just saying this for our audience, our insurance agent stood up. And this program that we developed was developed in conjunction with the Streetsboro Police Department. It's been in process for over 3 years. We're in about month 20 of implementation. We ended up this year to include a security consultant advising us. And Department of Homeland Security, Streetsboro Police Department, all were a part of developing this program. Our insurance agent then stood up and talked about how he considers Streetsboro the gold standard. He represents over 300 districts in the state of Ohio, many of which that have programs that nobody even knows about. And what we're doing is second to none. And I mean, you guys heard what he said, but to paraphrase, he said, nobody's doing what Streetsboro is doing, and everyone should be doing what Streetsboro is doing. And I'm very proud to say that because of everything that we put into place with our proactive response team, our physical facilities, our training of staff, we actually received a significant discount in our insurance, our district insurance, because of all the things we're doing. You know, a lot of districts around the state of Ohio, you've heard about the FASTER program, where districts are arming teachers and administrators and staff, and they send them to a FASTER Academy. The FASTER Academy is a 3-day intensive academy where they're trained in crisis response and primarily in firearms training. And a lot of districts, and again, I'm not going to say what districts. I know some are doing, some that don't. You know, it's a one done. They go to this training and then they're done. And what identified us as a gold standard is not only are we going through intensive training, that training is being replicated or repeated every single month. And our check and balance system that's in place, as all of you know, is pretty extensive too. Of course, all of that is protected by Ohio Revised Code under our safety plan. That's not public documents. So overall, we had positive feedback from that. I didn't have a single negative comment back. I did have a couple questions. I answered those questions with what I could. I sent that out to staff. I met with both labor management teams and we talked about it. And again, the overall impression was, first of all, it's really too bad that we've come to this in society, but it is where we're at, unfortunately. But then, you know, the response has been, well, thank goodness that Streetsboro is taking this so seriously. The level of training is far superior than even what most, you know, police officers go through on a year-to-year basis, and it's ongoing, and it's checks and balances, and I think overall it's making people feel safer, which is the goal. God forbid we ever had any type of violent incident in our schools. As a superintendent, I can say at least this district has created a team of people, along with all the training we've done with staff and kids and our physical plant, to give our students and our staff the best chance to get out of that situation. So comments from the board, I mean, you guys were all there. That's my perception of how the community safety forum went. I invite anyone out there. It's still on our website. Go to it and watch it. It is an hour and 10 minutes long. It's kind of long, but it has a lot of good information. But board, what do you guys want to respond, talk at all?
Kind of partial to all the safety stuff, and I'm glad that the insurance agent was there to just solidify what I think we all believe, that we're doing a lot more than a lot of other school districts are doing. I've heard no comments, positive or negative, about it, so I guess no news is good news. Streetsboro Schools does, I think, more above and beyond that. We can share more information out about some of the training that the staff has gone through and continue to go through. And also, I go to these different classes that are provided by national agencies and through a consortium. Today's class that I went to was brought to us by Louisiana State University, and I had two instructors from New York City. It was site protection through observational techniques, and I think if you're interested, I'd like to provide you with some information the next couple of weeks. It's free, and we can have it delivered in a relatively short time. But I think we're doing a great job, and I appreciate everybody being involved.
I'll just say that if you go to the website and you watch the video, there's a lot of really great information on there. But I would say that if you want the abridged version of it, at least fast forward to the end when the gentleman from the insurance company speaks, because he was not he's not a Streetsboro person. He's an outsider looking in. He does provide service to the district, but what he said was it impacted me a lot. So I would encourage everyone to at least get to that point and listen to what he has to say.
Okay, and the insurance industry represents risk, and they do risk assessment. And when he made the statements that should give people some peace, or at least whether you agree or disagree with some of the initiatives that are in place, at least understanding why we're doing it, and from the insurance industry, why it's considered a gold standard. So I appreciate that, Mr. Holt. Right. Well, again, if you did not have a chance to do that, it is on our website. It's also on the mayor's website, or the mayor's Facebook page, PTA Facebook page, and the past Facebook page. But it's right on the front page of our website, so you should be able to see that. Moving on to my next item, we just had a community coffee talk with the superintendent and our CFO, Mr. Scarsapino, and that was on Wednesday night at the Camelot Village Hall. I don't have the rec hall. Again, I'd like to thank everyone that attended. I know that, I'm sorry, Pete and John Hannon, I know they're not here, but I think Pete Facebook Lived it, but it may have been John that Facebook Lived it. It was Pete, okay. So Pete, if you want to see it, it is on Pete Hannon's Facebook page, and you can actually watch the live broadcast of it. There were our entire board. We had 2 city councilmen present, Mr. Rudiger and Mr. Hannon. The other Mr. Hannon, who's one of our cross-country coaches in the South Florida district, Sherry Gestring and Julie Solly, who hosted the event on behalf of the levy committee. Our Board of Education was all there, myself, CJ, and then we had 3 residents, and asked us very good pointed questions. And I think from my perspective, I feel like we gave them good information. It was information that maybe not everyone agrees or disagrees with, but we gave good information about the upcoming levy. We have another coffee talk scheduled for Saturday, October 20th from 9 to 11 a.m. in the Streetsboro City Park Pavilion. I would invite anyone that didn't have the opportunity to attend to come to that. It is an open forum. I started the meeting with a quick review of the facts of our levy, and just to give people the facts behind so you understand. We talked a little bit about tangible personal property tax and the impact that had on our district. We talked about the difference between permanent improvement and bond issue dollars versus operating dollars. We talked about the fact that we haven't had any new operating dollars voted since 2010, yet we've increased over 200 students and over 50 staff members. One staff member on average is going to cost the district between $50,000 and $70,000 depending on the type of insurance they take. You can do that math. So we're really trying to demonstrate that need. We know that we're asking for a significant burden from our taxpayers, but we tried to highlight the good things that we're doing. We want to continue doing those good things. So I think that everyone, when they left, at least felt like their questions were answered, or they had a chance to express how they felt we were doing, or their perceptions of the school district. So again, I would like to open it up to the board. I know you were all there. Do you guys have any impressions about the evening? Anything else that you want to add to that?
I think it was a great meeting, a lot of good dialogue. I wish more residents would have came, to be honest with you. I think we would have more dialogue and some better questions to work with, but so this is going out to all the residents that are watching this or see this, please come out to the next meeting. And even the safety meeting, I was extremely surprised that we only had a couple dozen people. Yeah, it wasn't that many. So that's important. Safety is a big deal, and we expect some of the residents to come out and show your support and see what we're doing too. So I challenge all the residents to be out there and see what we're doing. So that's all I have.
I think just going on what Mr. Kelly said, challenging the residents to come to the forum and get the correct information, because there's a lot of misinformation out on social media, and we just can't keep track of that all down and trying to correct people. There's people saying things that just aren't true.
Yeah, and CJ did a really nice job of explaining to the gentleman regarding taxes and the reappraisal and the effect on taxes, and the fact that our current 7.5 levy is based on the current appraisals. The ones that just came out have not been approved yet. And the impact on homeowners, we talked about, a lot of people have a misconception that Streetsboro is growing, so you're getting more tax dollars. Well, that's not correct. You're only getting the money that was voted, the voted millage. And I explained that to people, and there were some, and every time I explain that to people, they raise their eyebrows like, what? You mean, like 20 new people move into Streetsboro, you don't get more taxes? No, it takes the current tax burden, spreads it out among all the people. Another one that really raises eyebrows, and I can always see people, you can see their wheels turning, that our state foundation awards right around $6,000 per student to districts. We're a capped district, so the state of Ohio, based on our wealth factor, the funding we receive per student, we don't receive $6,000 per student, we receive $1,800 per student. So that's what the state of Ohio sends us. And if we have a kid that open enrolls out, goes to a charter school, we send them $6,000. So we get $1,800 from the state, we send the opposing district charter school $6,000. Where does the difference come from? Our general fund. And then, and again, I just want to say one more quick thing. I don't want to belabor the point, but tangible personal property taxes that have been in a phase out since 2006. Final phase out is in 2022. But to put it in reality, since our last operating year, 2010, in fiscal year 2019, which is what we're in right now, we have lost $10 million out of our general fund. And between now and fiscal year 22, when it phases out, we'll lose an additional $2.4 million. That came straight out of our general fund, operating dollars. So that in itself, if we had not lost tangible personal property tax, you could probably assume that we would not be asking for a levy right now, because you're looking at more than $12 million. So again, we want to educate people. We want people to ask us questions so that you can make an informed decision when we go to the polls. Or anything else? I don't want to stand on the soapbox. I'm just very passionate about this and passionate about what we do, and I want people to have the correct information.
I just think it's important to say that, thank the community for their continued support of the district. We just built new buildings, and we're now asking you to fund the support of those new buildings. So thank you.
We could talk for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. And then, so again, really quick, Saturday, October 20th, 9 to 11 a.m. at the Streetsboro City Park Pavilion. Even if you just want to come have a cup of coffee and eat some cookies and listen, that would be great. You don't have to say anything. And my email is on the website. You can email me with questions, and I plan tomorrow to do 2 more videos on facts. I've done 2 videos so far, 1-minute videos on facts about the levy. I'm going to do 2 more tomorrow. So I'll post those on my Twitter feed, and we'll also post those on the levy campaign's website. And Andres, are they going up on our website as well?
They are not.
Okay, they're in my Twitter feed that goes up on the website.
Yes.
Okay. All right, moving on to my final item. I apologize, my report's going on so long, folks. Ariane and I have been talking a lot about data and how the report card doesn't necessarily always tell the story, and we want people to drill deeper into the data. Well, it's not easy to do. I mean, if anyone in this room sits down and goes to ODE and goes to the report card website, you have to really start digging to see our data. And really, the same is true for our financial data, okay? So ironically, we've been talking about this, and I think you guys have heard me say in the past that we would love to have something called like a quality profile, or a way for parents, residents, anyone that's interested, to click a button and be able to access our data, our academic achievement data, and our financial data at the push of a button. Well, as irony goes, Ariane and I received an email from a company. Can you go to the Word Docs page? Yeah, because I think that's what we received an email from a company called ClearGov. And it's a company that's not in Ohio yet, but they're in several states around the United States. And what they've done is they've created a platform that you can post onto your website where you can very quickly access both your financial data and your student achievement data. So we were interested. So we sat through a webinar. You scroll down there and then scroll all the way to the bottom. No, not that one. Go back. Scroll down. Did you go in under?
Yeah, that's on public. I sent it to you in your email, Ariane, the link to should have popped up.
Can you log in under you or under me?
If you just go to the ClearGo and search for Streetsboro, it'll be the same page.
I want to look at a different one, and that thanks to the administrative content. So while she's doing that, what this does, and we're experimenting, we haven't committed yet, they're trying to break into Ohio, okay? So they showed us, they spent some time and showed us the platform, and we're very interested. One of the things that we asked was, it's important for our residents and our consumers, our stakeholders, to not just see our testing data, but it's also important for them to see our benchmarking data. We use the STAR, literacy and math, K-12, and those are the assessments and a couple other assessments that are showing how much our students are improving. And they're nationally and state recognized benchmarking programs. We use those several times a year to track the progress of our students. We think it's important for people to see not the letter grade on the report card necessarily, but let's look to see how our students are growing K-12. So we asked this gentleman, can you throw that STAR data into this platform next to our state testing data? And he said yes. So what we're in the process of doing is we're going to send him our STAR data, and he's going to send us back an example of what they can do. I don't have that for you today, but what I wanted to show you is what the platform looks like. So you're going to go down and click. There you go. I'll come over now. Thanks for that stuff. So there will be a button on our webpage, and it will take you immediately to this link. So when you look at this, you scroll, it has a little profile, and you see all the years of testing. Now, this particular link has only populated data through 2016, so you're only looking at data for 2016. If we decide to go with this company, they're going to populate this all through our current data. So it's not going to just be data through 2016. So right now, you're just looking at 2016 data. And so very quickly, you can look at a profile of 2,100 students, 2,150 students in 2016, on average 540 full-time and part-time employees. And you can click on that and do breakdowns of that. Then you can go to the financial overview of the district. And this includes both local and federal funds. And again, Mr. Scarsapino will have the opportunity to send, if we go and upload any data that you want. For example, if CJ wanted to upload our monthly revenue and our monthly expenditures and compare it to last year and compare it to similar districts, he can do it. So what's really cool about this tool is not only does it show our data, it shows expenditure per pupil, shows you where we compare to similar districts. We're about 1.9% lower in expenditures per pupil back in 2016. What this does is it looks at Streetsboro and it compares us to like districts. And then we can create our own reports showing our data, both our student achievement data, we can show it over time to show growth, or if it's not growing, we're declining, it shows that. And it also is a good way to break it down by different data points like socioeconomic status, race, gender. Also, it compares we can compare our data to districts that are like us and around us. So very quickly, I want to take you back. So that's what this looks like. I want to show you a district that's live. So we're going to go to Arlington, Massachusetts. So theirs is live. So you could not click on these. So what I want to scroll down to just really quick is when you look at your student, and we can add all the different buttons we want. But when you look, what really intrigues me is when you look at your student achievement data. So you've got your average SAT score, your graduation rate, and your go to college. That's some of the things they put up. And you can actually click on that and drill down into that data. So we can then click on that, pick a year, we pick 2017. And this is where you can start drilling down into things like graduation trends, a four-year cohort, like race, gender, subgroups, 5-year. Then you can start drilling down into student achievement data like English language arts. Here you're seeing English language arts for Arlington versus their state average, they're at 97. And then you can actually click on these and drill it down further. It's an easier way and a visual way to access data and financial data. I only showed you the student achievement side, but also there's the financial data side. So what Ariana and I want to see is that when you get to this area here, we want to be able to lay our benchmark testing that we do 3 times a year next to our state testing to show the growth of our students over time versus our state testing. And then we also want to be able to create, we can create charts and then push those out into the system. We want to be able to create charts showing our achievement over time based to similar districts, so that people can see beyond the A, B, C, D, F. Because we believe this gives you better data. Now, why am I telling you all this tonight? Because it's not completely ready yet. I'm telling you this because we're going to really scrutinize it. And I'll give you guys these links if you want to look at them later on your own. I don't want to take the time to do that. But the reason I want to you guys to hear this is because they're trying to break into Ohio. And if we send him our student achievement data, and if we like it, we're going to have CJ pick some data that he would want to display, send that, and then he's going to send us back a link on what it will look like for us and for our residents. And if it's something that we like, they actually are trying to get into Ohio that haven't been Ohio schools yet. They're willing to, is it a 40% discount? They're willing to throw us a 40% discount to have that version where you can drill down on the data, and it will cost us $3,300 a year for life. That's pretty amazing when we look at the amount of data warehousing, both financial and student achievement. But we're not going to take that step until we can make sure that they do what we want us to do. But we've been searching for a way to show the data beyond the report card, and this also then adds the financial data. So if you want to look at it on your own, I'm going to send you you guys can log into Board Docs and choose those ones that I showed you down below. But you can go to cleargov.com. And you can see and you can type in Streetsboro, and it'll show you just a very watered down version. It'll show you some financial data, and it'll show you some student achievement data. But it's not going to be a drill down type thing. And then one other quick thing, Arian did bring up a report that it does. Here's an example of a report, just to give you an idea of something that we can do. So here's an example of a report that we could post or we could draw out of this data. Here we pick some districts that are supposed to be like us and around us. And this shows the administrative spending per pupil in 2016. And you can see where we fit along with all the different schools that we identified. So 2016, we were spending about $821 per pupil for administrative spending. We were third from the bottom in the cohort that we chose. You can choose any district you want to display. And then all at the top end, Southeast local schools here in Portage County, they were spending about $1,658 per student in administrative costs. This is the type of report that we can identify. The board can say, hey, we want this report up on the website or as included in this. And these are the types of things that we can generate. Are there questions? Kind of went through that quick, but I'm trying to be cognizant of your time.
I think it's great, Mike. I was reviewing this, and I got the board docs for our meeting, and I thought it's great. So the data is awesome. Whether it's good or bad or negative or positive, however you want to look at it, I think it's great data that everybody can use to see where we're at and keep everybody informed too. So it's great, Mike. I think $3,300 is a reasonable price for this, for sure.
When do they think they'd have that back to us, the updated one?
He didn't give us a timeline. He said pretty quick, so we're going to be extracting and sending the data tomorrow and Monday. So I would think probably within a week, because they have people that are dedicated to crunching the numbers. I'm hoping to maybe even have something I can ship out to you guys via email before the next board meeting. But if it's ready, something's ready, we can show you guys at the next board meeting. But I would actually, if we have it sooner, I'll ship it out sooner so you guys can take a look at it.
How many different software companies are producing something like this?
This is the only one that I'm aware of. It's the only one that's reached out to me.
It's almost like a business intelligence software. I mean, they're giving you data it's giving you a way to interpret your data quickly and easy to understand.
Yes.
I wish the ODE would have something like that on their website so that you can throw into the report card, you can find out the details of it instead of, you almost have to get an interpreter to interpret the data.
And this company was actually born to look at financial transparency of governmental agencies, and then they branched into schools, and then the schools start saying, hey, what about our student achievement data? So all the data is derived from the state, our ODE. And their goal was that, you can go down at ODE, you can log on to ODE and click Streetsboro, see report card, and you can start running report after report after report after report. But I'm going to tell you, it's not easy. And I do it a lot. Well, not a lot, but I do it frequently. And it's not easy to do. So the idea of this company put together was, they began with the finances, was let's be financially transparent to people on how we're spending our money. So let's make it easy to do. And then that's when the student achievement part came in.
I think it's great. I think it goes along with pieces of the strategic plan. I think that it does similar, not as in-depth as a performance audit would do as far as comparing to peer districts and being able to navigate around those peers. It doesn't get into as in-depth of things, but it's definitely a great tool.
They were saying, CJ, that if we purchase we have it now. It's just not the drill down to all the specific data. But he said if you can dream it, they can probably make it.
Yeah.
So we have a performance auditor sitting at the other end of the table here. He might know from his days in the auditor's office some reports that would be very helpful for people to see. And I suspect, I don't know for sure, but the way the gentleman talked, if you tell them what you want, you send them the data, they'll create it and they'll include it.
And nobody else in Ohio is doing this?
Not that he said that they're trying to break into Ohio, and they haven't had anyone yet. So I suspect though the fact that it went out as a bulk email and they're starting to do webinars, I think you're going to start seeing that ClearGov thing pop up on district websites. So go into your board docs. I won't email that. Go into your board docs. There are a couple other links there for 2 other school districts around the United States, and you can see and you can really drill down and see some of that stuff. Any other questions? Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Galvin. Moving on to Treasurer's report. Mr. Swarsky.
So attached in your board docs, you'll see the general fund health review. You can see that in August, we were at 7.8 million. It's about 1.6 million less than August of 2018. We can attribute some of this loss to TPP loss in revenue, as we've discussed, and that's lost revenue to the general fund, and it shows over the 3-year period, and that is where our general fund is at as of August 31st. That will conclude my report.
Thanks, CJ.
Sorry for the dramatic pause. I forgot to say I conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Scorsapino.
Thank you.
Moving on to board reports, Mrs. Beck.
Yeah, so before the meeting, I passed out to you some pending legislation that you should probably be aware of. And I'm not going to read anything because I know you can all read. And I wanted to also mention with regard to the PTA, their next general membership meeting is going to be November 7th at 6:45 at Denver. There's also a Dine to Donate coming up on November 11th at Applebee's for the PTA, and you need the form. You can print that off of the PTA webpage to take it with you to Applebee's. And then December 1st is the Holiday Connection fundraiser, and that's going to be held at 3 o'clock at the middle school. So again, December 1, the Holiday Connection at the middle school at 3 o'clock. And then I just want to mention that the Northeast Ohio or the OSBA Northeast Region Executive Committee, there are applications for their Lester C. Marison Teacher Education Book Grant. It's about $1,000, and that's open to any high school senior who is thinking about going into education or plans to go into education. I would strongly encourage any of our students who have that interest to fill out the application for the book grant and try to pursue that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Baba. Mr. Gibson.
I have nothing to report.
Mr. Grimm.
A couple of quick items. There are 3 on-field marching band performances remaining for this season, 2 away football games, and 1 home game, which is senior night. Seniors in the SHS band will be recognized before the football game next Friday during senior night activities. Cheerleaders and football players will also be recognized at that time. The end of season marching band concert will take place Wednesday, November 7th in the high school auditorium. And also, for what it's worth, I saw some stuff online about Councilman Hannon and I believe Councilman Rudiger are involved in trying to, again, jumpstart and push through something on an electronic sign ordinance so that we can actually do something in the city besides seeing crappy static signs, including that one that we had to buy for the high schools. So it made comment that we did have almost a guarantee from some people in the city that we would have an electronic sign ordinance. It's not there. Mr. Hannon again assured me through social media that they are working on it and it's going to get done. And I believe Mr. Rudiger was involved in it as well. They want to make it happen.
He did mention that to me last night at the forum and said that it's at planning and zoning. It's in front of them again, I think. So, we have the sign, right?
Yeah, it's in storage. Very expensive, 2-sided video board in storage.
People have commented, well, the school should have one. Like, hey, guess what?
We have one. We do have one.
We did, we just gotta plug it in.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Mr. Kelly.
Just a few things. The boys soccer team will finish the regular season tonight, senior night. They will play the OHSAA district game in Talmadge on next Tuesday, on 16th at 7. Girls soccer team will also conclude their regular season tonight, which is senior night as well. And they'll host the district game on Monday, October 15th, at 7 p.m. against Crestwood. Both the cross-country teams will compete in the PTC League Meet on Saturday at Randall Fairgrounds. The volleyball team will begin their district tournament this Tuesday, the 16th, versus Poland at 8 at West Branch High School. Our football team defeated Coventry on their homecoming night, 37-0. They will travel to Norton on Friday to take on the first place Panthers. We are currently 4-3 on the season. And lastly, Randy, to our athletic career wanted me to mention that in regards to our volleyball seniors, he's calling them smart volleyball seniors. Some of them are going to some very prestigious colleges. So forgive me if I get these names incorrect, I apologize. But Corinne Allen is going to Columbia. Navi Shima, I said that right? Shima is going to Harvard. Kelsey Flick is going to Yale. And Haley Carson is going to Cornell. Lauren Burks, Princeton. And Taylor Reynolds is going to Kent. So
Wow, we did that with a D. I just want to mention that. That's awesome.
It's awesome. It's pretty neat stuff there, I thought. Not just athletics, but academics as well. So that's all I have.
Great, that's great news. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I'll report on Maplewood. I did send the notes from Maplewood's last meeting to everyone in the email. I visited the high school this afternoon. They had the kids out there building the concession stands for the ball fields. They're pretty impressive buildings, but they're going to be a really nice addition to the campus over there. The kids are doing a great job. And lastly, I just want to mention that next week on Wednesday is the All Boards Dinner. Make sure you do sign up for that. Unfortunately, I will not be attending it. I have some things I'm doing for work, so enjoy the dinner and have a great time.
Can you sign up so I can have your dinner? That's what I'm doing.
Always you bring it back for me.
No, I'm here.
I love getting that invitation in the mail to that dinner.
Yes, just make sure you fill it out and bring your spouse. Have a great time. Okay, moving on to consent agenda items. Please recommend the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items B through O.
I'll move.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes,
Mrs. Babbitt,
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes.
motion carried. Moving on to Superintendent's Recommendations.
Yes, I have two. Item 8 is recommended the Board of Education approve the letter of agreement between the Streetsboro City Schools and FMD Architects for the Board of Education addition as shown in the attachment.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any comments?
Just very quickly, as become my habit, I always send these agreements to our legal to look over. They did make some modifications, and they sent it back, and FMD was totally fine with it. This is just a standard agreement to allow them to be our architect throughout the project. It's to be noted two things. One, the project will occur on our timeline. I made that very clear. That's why when you read the paper article, Tim Ruzick, the lead architect, said there's not really a definitive timeline yet, because CJ and I will determine that timeline based on, which is my second point, the availability of our PI funds and leftover building project funds. I want to make it very clear, and I know you know this, but I'm going to say it one more time. We are using, this was a part of our master plan. We were always going to take leftover building dollars, 65% of which is the Streetsboro City School Districts, and use that to renovate the old middle school, which is now the annex. The board voted to scrap that plan because of increasing enrollment. It's actually more cost effective to add an addition to the board office. And I won't go into those details. We already did it a couple meetings ago. And we are going to use, which we don't have that number yet because it's not closed out. And then the remaining will be PI dollars. No operating dollars will be used for this project. So those are the 2 points I would make.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Babbitt,
Yes.
Mr. Grimm,
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes,
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
motion carried.
Item B is recommended the Board of Education designate the superintendent as the designee for student suspension appeals pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 3313-66 and Board Policy 6.18.
I'll move. Second. We have a first and second. Any comments?
Just the policy and the process that we follow here in the district actually is pretty antiquated, and I don't know of a district around that does that. So that's why we're moving the suspension appeals. I'm asking that you move the suspension appeals to me. For a lot of reasons, it's going to be much more cost effective. It's going to.
Have them all.
Then second, next month you'll be hearing about moving expulsion appeals from the board to a designee at the ESC, and it's going to follow the same thing. It's going to be much more cost effective and so forth and so on. So, but this is just about the suspension. So, are there questions about this?
Nope. None.
Okay.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Violi,
Yes,
Mr. Kelly,
Absolutely.
Mrs. Babbitt,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson,
No.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes.
motion carried.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Dalbaugh. Moving on to Superintendent's Recommendations.
It is recommended the Board of Education approve the fund-to-fund transfer of $5,206.05 from the Wait Music Project Fund to the SES Music Project Fund.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any comments?
Yeah, this is just some cleanup and accounting here from the move from Wade to SES. It's some funds that we're getting to and cleaning up, so.
Please call roll.
Mrs. Ballard,
Yes.
Mr. Crown,
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay, moving on to any new business. Hearing none. Any old business? Hearing none. Moving on to board president's recommendations. Item A is recommend the Board of Education approve the following board policy updates.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any comments?
This is an update that reflects Ohio Revised Code. Specifically, it deals about knives.
Is that the only adjustment in there, the highlighted portion? Talk about that. Right.
I believe so.
Yeah.
And then then these go through legal.
These come from our legal counsel.
And that's the job that they've taken on to update policies as Ohio Revised Code does change. So it updates, this is the law.
Correct.
Please call roll.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes.
Mrs. Ballard,
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes.
Motion carried. Item B, board resolution is recommended Board of Education approve the resolution to oppose the Ohio Legislature's discontinuation of alternate pathways to diploma attainment.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and second. Any comments?
Yeah, so if it's okay, Mr. Viola, I'd like
Please.
to kind of explain this a little bit. So last year, our students that were graduating, seniors, 2018, they were given alternate pathways in order to graduate. So in other words, right now our students currently have to achieve 20 credits and they have to score 18 points on end of course exams. And I put this in the administrative content, but on the end of course exams, those are those end of course exams that they take from the time they're a freshman through senior year, and they have to receive a minimum of 4 points in all the math areas. That's Algebra 1, Integrated Math 1, Geometry, and Integrated Math 2. They have to receive a minimum of 4 points in English 1, English 1, English 2, a minimum of 4 points, and then 6 points across the social studies and science areas of American government, American history, and biology. So that's the standard in order to graduate. We have a lot of kids that for whatever reason, they have the 20 credits usually, but they can't get the scores on those end of course exams. And there's a myriad of reasons, and we don't need to go into those. And so last year, the state legislature actually created some alternate pathways. So the implications were last year we had over close to 40 kids that may not have graduated had they not put these alternate pathways in place. So last year, they had to do the 20 credits, and they had to get 18 points on the end of course exams. If they didn't get the 18 points on the end of course exams, that's the sticky part. Then they had to do one of the following. They had to take every end of course exam at least twice. They had to track twice. And if they didn't achieve it, then they had to get 2 of the following. And these are the alternate pathways. They had to have an attendance rate of 93% or better, and that's significant. We're going to talk about that in a second. Another path was to work 80 hours at a part-time job during the senior year. Another path was to score a college-ready score on either the ACT or the SAT. Pass the work keys, which is a career readiness type assessment, or do a senior capstone shadowing project. So those are all the different pathways a student can take. And we had several students last year that took those pathways. We only ended up having 3 students that ultimately didn't graduate because they couldn't complete or didn't complete those pathways. And there's some individual stories behind those that we obviously will not talk about right now. So what's the impact right now for Streetsboro? Right now we have 37 students that still need to take those end of course exams again. But right now we have 37 students that are in danger of not graduating. And now that we've eliminated the alternate pathways, it puts them even in more jeopardy. So how do they graduate right now? So the way they can graduate right now is under Ohio law, they have to get 20 credits, which most of these kids have, or will have at the end of the year. and they have to get the 18 points on the end of course exams, or they can get an industrial credential or workforce readiness, which is that certificate that you can get from Maplewood. Now, well, actually not just Maplewood, you can get from our high school too. And so they've eliminated all those other ways to do it. So the only other ways they can graduate this year too is if they get, I said, the industry credential. It's called taking the work keys. And so your students at Maplewood, they can get 12 points for getting industry credentials. Maplewood has 11 different industry credentials. But the problem is, even though they have 11 industry credentialed classes, if they have to take the work keys and score a certain score on the work keys, if they don't have the points on the end of course exams, that score is very difficult to achieve. Very, very difficult to achieve. The only students, the majority of the students that we're seeing at Maplewood that pass that are in the programs of cosmetology and welding. And because the work keys lends to those two areas. The kids in the other 9 credentialed areas, if you throw them in front of the work keys, it's one of the more difficult exams and they may not pass. So if they don't have their 18 points on the end of course exams and they don't pass the work keys, the only other option is to get a remediation-free score on the ACT or SAT. So do the math. If they can't pass an end of course exam, do you think they're going to get a remediation-free score on the ACT or the SAT? Probably not. So this is where then those students would really have benefited from the alternate pathways that were in place last year. So 2 things I want to say about that. Number one, it's really too bad that we're making decisions now for students, or we're wanting the legislature to make a decision now in the middle of October for kids that are going to graduate in 5 months. We should be talking about what we're doing with kids that are in 8th grade or 7th grade and when they graduate. This is what's broken with our legislature and our educational system. And so now, I agree with this resolution, Mr. President, but it's going to put us behind the 8 ball, but we need it. We have 37 kids right now that if they don't pass that income workforce exam, they have a couple more tries at it, and they don't pass their work keys, or they don't earn a remediation-free score on an ACT or SAT, and I already explained that, they're in jeopardy of not graduating. So we want these alternate pathways to be reestablished. The problem I said about attendance is that we're already almost to a point in the year that if they choose attendance as one of their 2 items, they would have to attend every day between now and the end of the school year. And that's tough. So then that takes that off the table. That's why this is so critical. This is why you're seeing a lot of boards of education saying, we've got to pass this resolution, we've got to send it to our legislators, we need to have the superintendent on behalf of the board write a letter and send it to our legislators and saying, we disagree, need to reinstate this now. Unfortunately, we have a governor that's on his way out, and politically, he's not going to make a decision on this. We've been told by some of our key legislators down in Columbus that once some elections occur, that the House and the Senate are planning to move to reinstating the alternate pathways, but we can't bank on that. And we're also getting to a point in time where we're going to be really pigeonholed into what alternate pathways we can use if they reinstate them. So again, the statement I made just a second ago, it's really too bad that we're scrambling to try and fix something that should have been fixed a long time ago for 37 of our kids. Imagine the impact on kids that are in your big 7, your urban districts, the number of kids that are being impacted. It's just a sad state of affairs. But I wanted to give you guys a quick overview about this. Brian, thanks for letting me speak during your report. I do have a letter. Randy Griffith is kind of spearheading this for Portage County. He's given us his letter. He says, make it fit Streetsboro, make it fit wherever. I do plan to, with permission from all of you, to finish that letter and reflect Streetsboro and send that to our legislators.
Absolutely. Yeah, just to piggyback on what you're saying, Mike, Randy was very passionate about this last couple meetings. One of the biggest things is, he said the kids that graduate from Maplewood, they're going to have a certificate, they're going to be able to get a job. But these parents of these kids are not going to understand why they're not getting a diploma. And that goes against our graduation rate, not Maplewood's graduation rate. It goes against the local school's graduation rate. So, and it's going to affect about 30% of the kids. And at the end of the year, when these kids can't get a diploma because of this, the parents are not gonna understand why. That's probably the biggest thing that impacted me about the whole discussion of this.
It's ridiculous. Really is. Keep finding ways for grades to go lower.
And this hurts a group of kids that attend, they try. Our Maplewood students, they're going through 2 years of credentialing. They're walking out and making good money in a career, but they can't walk out with a diploma. It's criminal.
They're walking out, getting a job and helping the economy.
Yep.
Where you can't even get entry-level people to work. They don't even want to work anymore. They come in and start at a job. They don't even show up for work. When they show up for work, they don't do work. These kids go to Maplewood, they're learning a trade, and they're out there and they're enjoying themselves whenever they get out of school. So, thank you for
Thanks, Mike.
indulging.
Appreciate it.
If there's no further discussion, please call the roll.
Mr. Grimm,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes,
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mrs. Battle.
Yes.
motion carried. And the last thing is, item C, executive session is recommended the Board of Education enter into executive session to confer with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject of a pending or imminent court action, to consider the discipline of a public employee, and to consider matters required to be kept confidential by federal law or regulations or state statute with possible action to follow.
May I amend that? I also would like to add, talk about safety protocols.
And to talk about safety protocols. Who moved?
Aye.
I'm second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mrs. Battle.
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes,
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes.
motion carried. We're in executive session at 7:22.